Yahweh shall reign forever and ever. For the horse of Pharaoh with his chariots and with his horsemen went down into the sea. And Yahweh brought the waters of the sea upon them, but the children of Israel went over dry in the midst of the sea.
All right. Good day. Welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. Continuing today in the book of Exodus, chapter 10. Let's read, we're going to read 2 chapters. 12 is really long. All right. And the Lord said unto Moses, Go in unto Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart, and the heart of his servants, that I might show these my signs before them, and that thou mayest tell in the ears of thy son, and of thy son's son, what things I have wrought in Egypt, and my signs which I have done among them, that ye may know that I am the Lord. And Moses and Aaron came in unto Pharaoh, and said unto him, Thus saith the Lord God of the Hebrews, How long will you excuse me. How long wilt thou refuse to humble thyself before me? Let my people go, that they may serve me. Else, if thou refuse to let my people go, behold, tomorrow I will bring the locusts into thy coast, and they shall cover the face of the earth, that one cannot be able to see the earth, and they shall eat the residue of that which is escaped, which remaineth unto you from the hail, and shall eat every tree which groweth for you out of the field. And they shall fill thy houses, and the houses of all thy servants, and the houses of all the Egyptians, which neither thy fathers nor thy fathers' fathers have seen, since the day that they were upon the earth until this day. And he turned himself and went out from Pharaoh. Excuse me 1 second. Continuing in verse 7. And excuse me. And Pharaoh's servants said unto him, How long shall this man be a snare unto us? Let the men go, that they may serve the Lord their God. Knowest thou not yet that Egypt is destroyed? And Moses and Aaron were brought again unto Pharaoh, and he said unto them, Go, serve the Lord your God. But who are they that shall go? And Moses said, We will go with our young and with our old, with our sons and with our daughters, with our flocks and with our herds we will go, for we must hold a feast unto the Lord. And he said unto them, Let the Lord be so with you, as I will let you go, and your little ones. Look to it, for evil is before you. Not so. Go now, ye that are men, and serve the Lord. For that ye did desire, and they were driven out from Pharaoh's presence. We'll talk about that later. And the Lord said unto Moses, Stretch out thine hand over the land of Egypt for the locusts, that they may come up upon the land of Egypt, and eat every herb of the land, even all that the hail hath left. And Moses stretched forth his rod over the land of Egypt, and the Lord brought an east wind upon that land, the land all that day, and all that night. And when it was morning, the east wind brought the locusts. I should have played the day of the east wind as the song for today, right? And the locusts went up over all the land of Egypt, and rested in all the coasts of Egypt. Very grievous were they. Before them there were no such locusts as they, neither after them shall be such. For they covered the face of the whole earth, so that the land was darkened, and they did eat every herb of the land, and all the fruit of the trees which the hail had left. And there remained not any green thing in the trees, or in the herbs of the field, through all the land of Egypt. I'm too hot here on the mic. I see myself clipping constantly. Then Pharaoh called... I'm just destroying this thing. I don't know how it got so loud. Maybe I have it turned up too much. I don't know. Oh, that is jacked. That's not supposed to be like that. Oh, this is supposed to be. I'm sorry. I'm going to interrupt this a little here to. Somehow my sounds got. There. I think that's. I just want to talk normally without having it clip. Oh, there we go. Now we're good. All right. I must have bumped something. All right. We're verse throughout all the land of Egypt, right? Let's just pick up verse 15. For they covered the face of the whole earth. So that we did do that. Let's do 16. Then Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron in haste, and he said, I have sinned against the Lord your God, and against you. Now, therefore, forgive, I pray thee, my sin only this once, and entreat the Lord your God that he may take away from me this death only. And he went out from Pharaoh and entreated the Lord. And the Lord turned a mighty strong west wind, which took away the locusts, and cast them into the Red Sea. There remained not one locust in all the land of Egypt. But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, so that he would not let the children of Israel go. And the Lord said unto Moses, Stretch out thy hand toward heaven, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, even darkness which may be felt. And Moses stretched forth his hand toward heaven, and there was a thick darkness in all the land of Egypt 3 days. They saw not one another, neither rose any from his place for 3 days, but all the children of Israel had light in their dwellings. And Pharaoh called unto Moses and said, Go ye, serve the Lord, only let your flocks and your herds be stayed, let your little ones also go with you. And Moses said, Thou must give us also sacrifices and burnt offerings, that we may sacrifice unto the Lord our God. Our cattle also shall go with us. There shall not an hoof be left behind, for thereof must we take to serve the Lord our God. And we know not with what we must serve the Lord until we come thither. But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not let them go. And Pharaoh said unto him, Get thee from me, take heed to thyself. See my face no more, for in the day that thou seest my face thou shalt die. And Moses said, Thou hast spoken well. I will see thy face no more. And the Lord said unto Moses, Yet will I bring one plague more upon Pharaoh and upon Egypt. Afterwards he will let you go hence. When he shall let you go, he shall surely thrust you out hence altogether. Speak now in the ears of the people, and let every man borrow of his neighbor, and every woman of her neighbor, jewels of silver and jewels of gold. And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. Moreover, the man Moses was very great in the land of Egypt, in the sight of Pharaoh's servants, and in the sight of the people. And Moses said, Thus saith the Lord, About midnight will I go into the midst of Egypt, and ask all the firstborn of the land of Egypt, and all the firstborn of the land of Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sitteth upon his throne, even unto the firstborn of the maidservant that is behind the mill, and all the firstborn of beasts. And there shall be a great cry throughout the land of Egypt, such as there was none like it, nor shall be like it any more. But against any of the children of Israel shall not a dog move his tongue, against man or beast, yet ye may know that the Lord doth put a difference between the Egyptians and Israel. And all these thy servants shall come down unto me, and bow down themselves unto me, saying, Get thee out, and all the people that follow thee, and after that I will go out. And he went out from Pharaoh in a great anger. And these thy servants shall come down to me, and bow down themselves unto me, saying, Get thee out. Okay. And the Lord said unto Moses, Pharaoh shall not hearken unto you, that my wonders may be multiplied in the land of Egypt. And Moses and Aaron did all these wonders before Pharaoh. And the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, so that he would not let the children of Israel go out of his land. 12 is a very long. We're just going to break there because that's plenty. We're not going to get through all that. We may get through all that, but we wouldn't get into 12. Just like yesterday, we did not get into 10. And we didn't have a lot of 8 to do either. So, and there are many things as I go through here I thought I wanted to talk about or explore. So, the Lord says to Moses, he sends him in, to bringing the plague of the locusts, right? And of course, there's a parallel plague in the book of Revelation, but very different. The locust army in Revelation is a very different type of entity, because I don't think it's actually animals at all, or insects. Insects are animals. What I'm talking about. Okay, so they come. Thus saith the Lord God of the Hebrews: how long will you refuse to humble yourself before me? So God still. The thing is, like, one of the things I want to comment about was, it constantly reminds us in this chapter many times. It's repeated, and the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart. The Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart. And I want to say this, that it's not that God comes along and takes some innocent person that would otherwise do good and then hardens their heart to make them do evil. That is not what the Lord does. What it is he already is evil. He has it in his heart. And like I said, there is a hidden wisdom which he does not have, which some of his servants seem to be keying in on it, like, hey, this is not going too well. These powers are coming in. You'd think when confronted with these miracles and wonders, it would cause this change of heart, but it doesn't. People are like that. They double down. It's like on a lot of things. Getting someone to admit they're wrong is really rough, isn't it? Some people more than others. I got hiccups. Some people more than others, right? Some people are more prone to sticking to their guns, even well past the point where they should have, maybe reconsidered and reconsider and reconfigure. It's like that. So I've done that many times. I reconsider my beliefs, especially the ones that are peripheral. Those are always open to consideration. Things that far life. So, hey, Paul, what do you think about the millennium? I'm like, well, okay, let's talk about it. Hey, what do you think about someone? I gotta respond to someone in the email because I haven't been checking my questions email. If you send me a question and you watch the podcast, you might leave a little thing on the comment. Hey, there's a question for you in your email. Thanks. Anyways, that's a good thing. But he, what was it? It was something about that question. Oh yeah, it was a question about something in Micah had said a while ago, and I was looking at him like, he's like, what do you think? The 8 shepherds and 7 principal men, and he's like, I think it's this and that, and I'm like, I don't know what to say to it, because what do you think? It's farther than I would go, is what I would say to that gentleman. Nothing wrong with thinking that. I see nothing that. I definitely wouldn't be dogmatic about those things. Things that are on the periphery. Things that are like I said, that come down to sometimes are matters of conscience, or or doctrines that are not central to the faith. Because there's a lot of stuff in the Bible we could talk about. Even just talking about this Exodus. The thing is, it's all got to be, it has to be based on an overall revelation. Our understanding is not based on just, one verse here, one verse there, or leading someone on a breadcrumb trail from one verse to another to establish something that is questionable, which is what often is done. That's how every false doctrine is spread. People have 2 or 3 verses, they bring them and they show them to somebody and they explain what they think it means, and they convince them or they don't. And that's the weird thing too, I think, about, like I said, a lot of what people do is just poaching Christians from other churches, especially in this country. And that apparently isn't going well, because there aren't as many Christians in this country as there used to be. Of course, a lot of that could be from immigrants from non-Christian countries, but we also get immigrants from Christian countries. In fact, we get missionaries from Christian countries coming to America because we probably need it. We need the gospel preached here, because just like everywhere. But and like a lot of things, it's like verses. When people are poaching other believers, they always bring them verses and stuff. There's all, to convince them of, oh, look at it, no, it's not a Trinity. God, Jesus is an angel. Look, I have a few verses here. Oh, no. Jesus is an angel. He is one and the same with God. I'll show you verses for that. And the resulting confusion and confliction. And you consider the fact, like I said, on one hand, we have a heresy that states that Jesus is not distinct from the Father, that they are one and the same, not only being, but person. And then we have, on the other hand, People who say, no, they're completely distinct from each other. So distinct, in fact, that Jesus was created. He was a created thing. I forget if that's the Jehovah's Witness or Mormons or something. I don't want to slander, even I don't like to slander even heretical sects. I like to get it right. Okay. Okay, fine. Pharaoh's hard heart. Else, if thou refuse to let my people go, tomorrow I will bring the locust to thy coast. Humble yourself in the sight of the Lord. If you, and God has hardened his heart, so it's kind of an ironic question, right? But it must be asked in a certain sense. It's like because it is for Pharaoh. It's for him to consider. Because he ought to humble himself. So when God hardens his heart, he's like, yeah, because he otherwise would, because he would wise up at some point. But he wants to show all his wonders, and Pharaoh doesn't deserve anything. God doesn't owe anybody anything. And considering the fact that he was Pharaoh, you know what I mean? It's like he had enough out of life, okay? And then that God would use him for this purpose. I find nothing morally problematic with any of that. Because God is God. He gets to play like God. And if a man is judged wicked and God does not desire to save him or turn him from his wicked way, if he wants to destroy that man, he is perfectly justified in so doing. He brought him into being to be destroyed, and then he destroys him. Where's the injustice? It seems like things just fulfilled their purpose. And the truth is, the wicked will never really see God as just. I mean, they will see his justice, so to speak, but they're always going to feel, when you're the one being judged, even if you're guilty, there's resentment. Because people don't like being judged. I think that weeping and grinding of teeth is not of regret so much as resentment, anger, and fury. Yes, and yes, sadness for themselves. Mm-hmm. So it describes how they will fill the houses. It's the houses of everybody, which neither your fathers nor fathers' fathers have seen, or your fathers' 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 fathers have seen. And Pharaoh's servants said unto him, how long shall this man be a snare unto us? Let the men go that they may serve the Lord their God. Knowest thou not yet that Egypt is destroyed? And he did harden the heart of his servants also, but not all of them. And some of them were wise and brought their animals in from the hail. Others were not. Their hearts were hard with Pharaoh. What? This is, it's all coincidence up till now. Or I don't know what. What do they tell themselves? That's got to be what they tell themselves. Okay. And also because, when you think you're a God and then all of a sudden you have another God come to you and start working wonders, pride is going to make you want to stand up against that. If you're wicked and full of pride. So this is, he says, but with who are they that shall go? He wants to, well, who's going? Who's going? He said, let my people go. Well, who? Who does that mean? Well, Moses meant we'll go with our young, our old, with our sons and with our daughters, with our flocks and with our herds, we will go. Because we got to have a feast and everyone's going to participate. And he said unto them, I got to look this up in an NIV or something. I need an interpreter. Because the King James is making this hard. Because I'm getting it's something like, I think he's sort of mocking or something. Let the Lord be so with you as I would let you go. And your little ones. Look to it, for evil is before you. Not so. Go not. It's like, I don't know exactly what's going on. But obviously, once it gets to not so, evil is before you, it seems like, and they were driven from, he gets enraged when he hears they want to take their kids, because he knows that means they may never come back. He wants to ensure their return, because he doesn't want them to go. And Moses, in some ways, has not hinted that they're leaving permanently. It's like, well, we're just going to go have a feast. We'll be back in a little while. 3 days journey, He says, not so, but he says, not so, go ye that are men. All right, let's look at the Bible Hub here at verse 10. Okay, 10. 10:10. Oh, I want to go to the NIV, though. I'm not going to try. The Hebrew, whatever, there were no words there that I thought were problematic. It's just the whole thing. Pharaoh said, the Lord be with you if I let you go along with your women and your children? Clearly you are bent on evil. No. Huh. The Lord be with you if I let you go along with your women and your children. And then they put exclamation. I mean, I think that's the spirit anyways, right? Clearly you are bent on evil. Yeah, well, what to him is evil is taking away all his slaves. I mean, hey, what are you doing with my property? No, have only the men go and worship the Lord, since that what you've been asking for. That's what Pharaoh has assumed what he was asking for. That's never what he asked for. But Pharaoh's acting like he's putting in some, now you're trying to take advantage of me, eh? Give them an inch and they take a mile, these Hebrews, I think that's what he's thinking. So that seems clear to me now. I mean, it seemed clear when I go through it, but just the wording in the King James is really, let the Lord be so with you, as I will let you go and your little ones. Look to it, for evil is before you. Yeah. I like that. The NIV reading is probably better. It definitely better. What am I talking about? I don't want to just... Like I said, and I don't think it's because they're interpreting it so much there. They just did a better job of translating it. Whatever. I mean, I'm sure the Hebrew is a little opaque there because, like I said, when people in other languages are talking in a way that's sort of like semi-facetious, like if I let you go, like that's like it's conditional, and like I said, there's it's not always easy to understand exactly what's going on, but the context helps us. And so he stretches out his hand over the land of Egypt for the locusts come out. The east wind. The east wind. East winds are unusual, right? Prevailing winds always come from the west, right? But then sometimes they reverse. And that is usually due to some, major weather pattern development. When it blows in from the east, it's usually pretty bad weather in my experience. When we get wind and rain from the east, it's always just a really bad one. You get bad ones from the west too, but from the east, it's like consistent. And like I said, it's because it's going against the prevailing wind. That means you've got whirling going on and stuff, where the winds are whipping around and coming backwards. So yeah, it's going to be, in that case, it's going to be quite a strong wind. I mean, sometimes we get gentle breezes from the south and from the east. But that's usually because there's something whirling farther away, is what I would say. I'm not an expert on the weather. Okay, but the east wind also is, like Isaiah talks about the day of the east wind. And from what I understand, the winds that blew were also, especially in Judea and stuff from the east, when it would blow, it would be hot off the desert. A hot and scorching wind. And if it's blowing east from Arabia into Egypt, or from southern, bring out the locusts and whatever. I mean, how he brings about the locusts is just another thing the Lord arranges in his ways. Upon all the day and all the night, and when it was morning, the east wind brought the locusts. So it started blowing from the east, and then in the morning, locusts. And they went up over all the land of Egypt and the coast of Egypt. That means the borders. And they were very grievous, were they? Nothing like that, because they covered the whole face of the earth. I mean the ground. That means you couldn't even see hardly the ground for them walking on. It's probably slightly hyperbolic, but it was like wall-to-wall locusts, that's for sure. And that the land was dark. The whole land looked darker because of all the locusts. And I wonder if that also means of them, when they were in flight, because when they're in the air, it literally almost blot out the sun. And anything that was left in the green and the trees and the fruit, they absolutely devoured. Then as these locusts arrive, he calls for them in haste. He's like, I've sinned. This is probably an early meeting with this. Therefore forgive and entreat the Lord, take away from me this death. And when he says only, it would be better at the beginning of the sentence. Only take away from me this death, It's not like he's saying, I'm only asking this. That's not what he means. He just means just only do. I'm asking one thing is what it means. Take away from me this death, because it was because it's a plague. They're going to starve if they don't get rid of these locusts. And even when they do, I wonder. And the Lord turned a mighty strong west wind, which took away the locusts and cast them in the Red Sea. And there was not one locust in all the coast of Egypt. But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart. Once again, for this purpose have I raised you up, that I might show my signs in you. It's not of him that wills, nor of him that runs, but of God that shows mercy. It's of God. It's an important thing to realize about salvation. It is of God. He saves us. That's why he's our Savior. You know, I do not grab a lifeline. The lifeline is thrown and it drops right over my head. You know, whatever. I don't know. Analogies are not necessary. Sometimes it gets a little silly. No, because there was like, you have to choose to hold the life, you know, to grab the life preserver. Oh, we do, but that's not what salvation is. You know, yes, we have to choose. We have to. That's something we have to do, but not to be saved. I mean, as far as like, yes, by grace through faith. So faith is the conduit. So yes, we must choose him, but he chose us first. That is the essential thing. Without the prompting of the Holy Spirit, and that they actually call that in the Calvinists call it regeneration, I believe. Which is I'm not certain about that, but I have a lot of beliefs that are in line with Calvinism, but I'm not a Calvinist because obviously they believe in eternal torment, which I also believe in. I just believe in it differently. I just believe that is figurative, and it stands for the fact that, you know, the wicked will go through torment, and all that they go through, all that is revealed, like through Pharaoh and all this, and God shows us all this stuff. In the new heavens and the new earth, which God will make, we will go out and look upon their carcasses, as it's written. I don't take that too literally either, but I think it's the same idea. Is we look upon the husk, we go over those those interrogation records. You know, their torment will live on, but they will not. The second death is a real thing. It's not just a figure. It's not it's not symbolic or spiritual or anything. You really die for good. Because God, like, in him is life and light. And to just take that light and life, that image of God, and put it into a state of eternal, yeah, whatever. I'm not going to digress into that. Stretch out thy hand toward heaven, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, that may be felt. And Moses stretched forth his hand toward heaven, and there was thick darkness 3 days. They saw not one another, neither rose any from his place 3 days. Good idea. You might stub your toe and break it like I did. And Pharaoh called unto Moses and said, O ye, go ye. Oh, ye. Can I even read? These glasses are terrible. Go ye, serve the Lord. Only let your flocks and herds be stayed. And but let your little ones go with you. It's like, if we lose the people, at least we hang on to their cattle. Because a lot of their cattle has been destroyed. Some, you know, right? But this is, you know, anyway, so you must also give us sacrifices and burnt offerings. We can't go without cattle. How are we going to serve the Lord our God without these sacrifices and burnt offerings we require? The cattle shall go with us. There shall not an hoof be left behind. We're not just a few. We want all of them. For thereof we must take to serve the Lord. And we know not with what we must serve the Lord until we come thither. But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart. You know, he'd like to get rid of them, like to have the plague stop, like to just resolve the whole issue. But the way that, you know, the idea of like just this whole completely letting go. Sorry, I got ice on my toe. I want to move it. All right, there we go. That's better. Oh, it's just kind of like weird. Okay. And so he hardened his heart, and instead of, he just becomes completely enraged and threatens Moses with death. Next time you see me, I'm gonna have you put to death, buddy. I've had about enough of you. Maybe you're the problem. Maybe if I kill you, the whole Yahweh thing goes away. You know? No, Yahweh. You know, in that song, it's Yahweh, and I think I've explained this, but the reason I stopped using Yahweh, because I just couldn't find another scholar that agreed with him, Arnold Murray, on that. I didn't look high and low. It's just after a while I realized, you know, no one seems to agree with him. And since I had decided that he was not a scholar and probably just completely made up He was not a doctor either of anything, because the person he's claiming to have gotten his doctorate from wasn't part of any accredited whatever. He that believes and is baptized shall be saved. Believe only, thus you can't fruitfully until you are baptized. We're going to have water and the Holy Ghost. Well, and I would just say the thief on the cross was not baptized, could not be baptized. If you can be baptized, you ought to be baptized. That's what I teach. I'm not a Catholic. I believe in baptism. I've been baptized 3 times. So I definitely believe in baptism. One ought to be baptized. But there are many kinds of baptisms. The thief on the cross was baptized by suffering with Jesus, in a sense, you could say. Remember Peter, he said to Peter, can you be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with? And it seemed to be that he was referring to the suffering of the cross. He says, you will indeed be baptized, but you're not ready right now. And so, yes, you can't just like believe and think that's working. I mean, I definitely believe that. Yeah, that's fine. The thing is, it's like I said, it's like, I think it's completely wrong when people say like, well, I don't need to be baptized, so just to prove a point, I'm not. I think that's really disrespectful to Jesus, because he was baptized. If Jesus was baptized, and if anyone didn't need to be baptized, it'd be Jesus, right? And of course. Also, when they crossed the Red Sea, that's also a picture of baptism. It's like, why would we not want to, follow in the footsteps of our Lord? And so it's like time, it's an opportunity. You need to have an opportunity, but there are other ways, like I said, to be baptized if you cannot be baptized. Like I said, the thief on the cross. But, I'd say, like a lot of things, that is not the, having never been baptized when it's not, it's no fault of yours. Like maybe, like you're a prisoner and you come to faith and they won't allow it. There were the self-Baptists, and during the Protestant Revolution, right? They were baptizing themselves because they didn't believe that the Catholic baptism counted. And like, I don't know, as far as, I think that it's kind of ridiculous. What? Yeah, none of them are this. Well, it's like, I wasn't baptized by John the Baptist or anybody that baptized in those days. I mean, whatever. I'm not going to get in an argument about baptism because I don't really mind. I think that people should follow their conscience and get baptized in a way that is consistent with their faith, and the Lord will judge. The idea that he would be caught up on details like that would be like the thing. It's like, okay, I don't think that the outward performance of these rituals are just gestures. I think it is part of our faith, but also, from my perspective, I think that it can border on legalism, which I despise. So, all right, speak now in the ears of the people and let every man borrow of his neighbor. Again, that word borrow, I think, is closer to ask. It was last time. Let's check it out again. Borrow. Borrow. To ask or inquire. And it could have the force of borrow, I suppose. I guess I'm trying to be a little, I want to make some sort of apology for that. Like, not like they're like borrowing without, I think they're saying, could you give us some jewels? I forgot which part of 1 John 5:8. Oh, that one's right, I think. Spirit in the water and the blood, sure. Speak now in the ears of the people, let every man borrow of his neighbor. So, yeah, he was going to let you go hence, and he's going to thrust you out. And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. Moreover, the man Moses was very great in the land of Egypt, in the sight of Pharaoh's servants, in the sight of the people. And because he was doing stuff, bringing miracles, even though as terrifying as it would be, you got the people are going to respect this. This guy's confronting Pharaoh. He's an all-powerful ruler. As far as he has an absolute dictatorship. He can do what he pleases within his office. Obviously, Pharaoh can't just, there's, like I said, in some ways, sometimes kings are bound. Leaders are bound. They like, I have to do this because I'm in this position. And the sign of Pharaoh's servants and the sign of the people. Okay. And so Moses says, thus saith the Lord, about midnight will I go out into the midst of Egypt. And wait, did we get the... So what are we going to do? Yeah, the darkness. And the darkness, I guess, just goes away on its own. And then, okay, I just want to clarify that. Let me see here. Okay. And Moses said, okay, and all the firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sits upon his throne, to the firstborn of the maidservant that is behind the mill, and all the firstborn of beasts. All the firstborn will die. That's quite a plague. The plague of the firstborn. All that open the womb belong to me, saith the Lord. As we said, the firstborn are sanctified. And they had to be, and what that meant is you had to buy them back with a sacrifice, because they belonged to the Lord, And so that's symbolic too. And Christ also is the firstborn, right? He is the firstborn among many brethren. Now, do not mistake that for the idea that he had a beginning or he is not from everlasting. No, that's not what it means. But he is in position, the firstborn. That in order of, because in birth order, there's a privilege that comes with being firstborn. The firstborn is the chief heir, usually. Like with Esau and Jacob, Esau was supposed to inherit. But Jacob made him, persuaded him to sell his birthright. And so Jacob took on the right of firstborn. And so Christ is the firstborn among many brethren, and he brings us to God. Through his sacrifice, of course, of himself and our faith in his blood. Because without faith in his blood and his forgiveness and the cleansing power, how shall we come to God? Without the righteousness that brings. He will look upon us, not as sinners anymore, but as his saints. Now, some people have a very strict sense of saint. But in the Bible, that's because they're talking about people who have passed on. But in the Bible, the living were saints, because it was just the saints are the sanctified ones. Whereas in the Catholic thing, it means someone who they've determined they believe is in heaven. I think something like that. It's been a while since I read my catechism, I gotta confess. Okay, but against any of the children of Israel shall not a dog move his tongue. That's a real interesting turn of phrase, right? Obviously means some sort of harm. That it probably means the least harm, because like a dog licking you is a pretty minor inconvenience, or like, because I know my wife doesn't like it when the dog tries to lick. We don't encourage our dogs to lick us. Whenever I see people with dogs licking them, it's a little, some people think it's I don't judge you or anything. I just don't like it. It's kind of, gross. And in the Hebrews, they also consider the dogs to be unclean and kind of abominable creatures. And so, and also, we have all these metaphors for, when we say, oh, he's a dog. It's a very, it can be a derogatory term when used on a person, calling them a dog. And the female version, of course, also they use for women. It's another insult. Really, nothing different there. Well, it has a different connotation, I think, doesn't it? So I'm gonna see if I'm just curious. What did the NIV do with that? Did they get all interprety, or did they just leave that interesting turn of phrase the way it is? What did they do? So let's just pull up the NIV and see. Oh, there's another thing there. Every firstborn of Egypt will die, but against the children of Israel, where is it? Shall not but among the Israelites, not a dog will bark at any person or animal. Okay, so even less, right? That dog's bark is worth it in his bite, like we say. Dogs will not, moving his tongue makes sense because even though dogs don't use their tongue to speak, we think of using the tongue as a form of speech. So a dog will not even speak at them. No, not even a dog will bark. You know what I mean? That's less than anything, right? Degrees of saints. Canonizing. Interesting. Yeah, okay. So the people of God are the saints, but not in the sense that they've been canonized, right? You're all aspiring to it, right? Yeah. I aspire to be a saint too. I don't want to be canonized, right? Not by the Catholic Church, but that's whatever. There would be degrees, right? Because there are greater servants and lesser servants. I mean, right? And also those who have gone on, and we who are still here. So I think dog, better than licking. Because licking, like I said, that's kind of gross. But barking, that's something that, who cares about the dog's barking? It's annoying. Not even the least harm will come to them, is the meaning of the dog moving his tongue. All right. You may know that the Lord puts a difference between the Egyptians and Israel. And in reading all that Exodus on the Egyptians and Israel, God was very strong to bring them out and to deliver them and to bring them into their land. You know? And I think it's easy sometimes for people to get caught up in all the things that have happened over history, from them conquering the land and them being cast out of the land and being brought back to the land, and then in the days of Jesus, the second temple being destroyed, and them being deported again, and then for almost 2,000 years, and actually for most of them for right up to, we're not there yet. We need to get to 2070, I think, for it to be 2,000 years. But most of the Jews are still in the diaspora. I don't think the majority of Jews in the world live in Israel. I think the majority live in America. I'm pretty sure. Like I said, it's easy to get caught up in the biblical stories and think like just by default, when you hear that name, that's something we have to support. As I'm sure my Catholic friend knows, they probably heard about this, the Israeli army they shot Catholic women at prayer in a church, and they bombed churches, and that's unacceptable. I don't care who you think you are. The true Israel of God for a Christian is the church, and that's that. And that doesn't take away from the Jewish people the fact that, as Paul said, that to them pertain the promises. They can be grafted in very easily into the church, as we often see when Jews convert to Christianity. It's like I never felt more Jewish in my life. You don't not become a Jew anymore, And so that's the Israel of God with Christ as King. That's why they don't like that phrase, because that's what it means. It's referring to his kingdom as being the true Israel. And now, like I said, that doesn't mean that it's not significant that they're there, the ethnic Jewish people. Some of them anyways, but we should not automatically render our allegiance to something so, violent. And, I know the people that oppose them are also violent, but, we know that Christ has taught us to choose the path of peace, and that would have been better for everyone. And the thing is, people have tried, and a lot of these things are beyond man's controls. There are principalities and powers at work, and God's plan is unfolding before us. And I said, knowing that God has a plan, knowing that things are proceeding according to God's ways and intentions, does not release us from the obligation. The Israel of God, right. Yeah. So anyways, there is a difference between people who are faithful to God and people who know him not. That's what the Lord wants to show people. That's why it says, "Be ready to give a reason when men ask you of why do you have such hope." There should be a difference. Like I said, people should. Like I said, I would never want. I'd be really disappointed if any people who are acquainted with me and did not know I was a Christian, if they thought I never would have thought you were a Christian. That's what happened to me in. I remember when I first showed up at InterVarsity Christian Fellowship at college, and there were people from my high school that were part of the group, and they were just shocked that I was because in my second year, that was the first year of college was when I turned to the Lord and I really started studying the Bible. I wanted to be a priest, except my friend, as he reminded me, you like girls, so that's going to be a problem. And I realized that was right, so I was whatever. So I stepped away from the priesthood. I wanted to go become a Catholic priest, actually, which is funny. Because that's all I thought, if you want to serve God, that's how you have to do it. I didn't realize you could be a lay preacher, that there are such things. But there should be a difference. Christians should be distinctive. We are to be salt and light and all these things. We are to be made after the image of Christ, or conforming to that image, attempting it at least. So when people see you trying to do right, or apologizing for your mistakes. I had my son apologize for something that he had not done. It was an inadvertent. There was an inadvertent bite in a wrestling match, which my son would never do intentionally. We do not do that. Right. Yes, I've been talking about the synagogue of Satan. I really start feeling strongly that when I hear some of the things coming out of the mouth of the leaders over there, the intent, saying what they want to do, and then coupled with the atrocities and war crimes, it makes me think of the synagogue of Satan. It's like, this is not, and I see the rabbis, the ones who are faithful to their Judaism, like Rabbi Weiss and there's other rabbis, and I hear them talk. And they completely oppose it. And I'm like, those people are true to their Jewishness, to their Hebrew, to their Judaism. You don't have to, I'm not saying you're not a Jew if you're just ethnically a Jew and you're secular. I'm saying that the blessings promised to Israel are not for just some ethnic people. Otherwise, Esau would have been heir with Jacob. And there wouldn't have been sons of Belial in the tribe of Benjamin. There always were people who, with many of them, God was not well pleased. And they were right there in the midst of it. That's why we've got to take heed. That's why I always say, I don't hate anybody from any denomination, because there has a few names even in Sardis. Even in the worst church, there could be people there who are faithful, because they're trying to save it. I know a lot of Catholics that don't like a lot of the things that come down from the top. They disrupt and change what the faith has been for centuries. Yeah, great verses. The children of the flesh, these are not the children of God, but they are counted. They that are the children of the promise are accounted for the seed. Right. Because the promises pertain to them, but they have to take hold of them. And they ultimately have to find Christ, because he is the promised seed. Not seeds as of many, but seed as of one, which is Christ. Yeah. And I don't mean that to be in any way be disrespectful, but it's been our religion for 2,000 years. So when people in modern times don't want, and other Christians start getting carried away with this, Israel, I don't know what you would call it, because it's almost like it's a blindness, certainly, and a willingness to excuse all kinds of evil. Just because someone else kills a baby doesn't give you the right to kill a baby. Right? Oh, they killed my baby, I'll just go kill someone else's baby to make up for it. That's not moral. That's evil. Just because a terrorist is hiding underneath a hospital, that doesn't give you a reason to bomb that hospital. That's absurd. And I hear people using that kind of moral justification all the time on our news from our congressmen. It's disgusting. Women and children are being murdered in the name of, I saw a terrorist right behind him. Oh, look, there's a terrorist. And I saw Leon Panetta on the news. He said the Israelis tend to shoot first and ask questions later. He even admits it. You can't let it, but people are so deceived that they won't hear it. And I love the Jewish people. I don't want to see them hurt, and I think what they're doing might wind them up getting hurt. Because I would, if I was, like I said, we have a belief that we should turn the other cheek. And I take that in a broad sense we should favor peace above all else and seek it. That is what Jesus wants. There are morally justified reasons for countries to go to war. So they say, if you're actually invaded and you need to defend yourself, I suppose, as it is written. But I've always, it's a little fuzzy around there, right? The moral justification for war, many men who are better philosophers than I have thought about it for a long time. Even so, like I said, it's like, even if other people do it, doesn't give you a justification. Like, they're terribly evil and wicked. Look at all the things they do. Well, don't become like them. God forbid. Don't become like the terrorists. I hate that word, because I know that's going to be the word they'll use on us. They're going to call us terrorists for the things we say, for the things that they don't like. They're already doing it. You know, like the congressman who put out that bill to condemn the phrase "from the river to the sea" and all that. All people everywhere should be free. They want to see people free. Free from their sins, free in Christ. And the best way, you know, I don't think bombing them into submission is going to help with the preaching of the gospel, since they look at this as some sort of Christian crusade, which it's not. Pharaoh shall not hearken to you. That my wonder, wait, oh, let me go back here. I'll just roll down. Okay, the dog moved his tongue, and all these thy servants shall come down unto me and bow themselves unto me. He hasn't gone out of his presence yet. That's right, because it's like I remember noticing that. He says, I will see your face again no more. And I kind of assumed he left, but he didn't. As I was reading it, I thought that in my mind. But then he didn't leave. He's still there. And so he's saying, yet will I bring one more plague? And when we go, well, the Lord says that to him. Okay, whatever. I'm not doing. Sometimes they say things. I'm like, okay. They get really specific, and I know, because when people have questions, they want to have solid answers. Catholicism provides you that framework. You know, if you have a question, they have an answer. So, like I said, I've even considered going back to the Catholic Church. I probably wouldn't change my personal beliefs, but I would consider being a member. I thought about it because I just wanted to be in the fight again. And I'm like, I'll be Catholic. Why not? They're pretty tolerant, actually, right? Compared to other religions. I mean, because it's like, compared to, like, I could never be a Baptist. Never. I can't think of a single Protestant denomination that I'd want to be part of these days. And especially with all this evangelical nonsense over Israel. Like I said, I've said for a while, I don't feel interested in speaking bad about Catholics, or someone want me to say something about Greek Orthodox. I don't really, I don't endorse, but I will not speak against my brothers at this time like that. You know what I mean? Not generically like Catholics or something like that. That's terrible. But anyways, it's fun, all the verses you bring to me, and you have a lot of Christianity. I just realized your name. I didn't even read that. I just kind of was going over. I'm like, okay, yeah, you're a real good Catholic booster, aren't you? Well, all you get from me is love. But I don't know. I don't know. Maybe someday, huh? Moses said, "Thus saith the Lord, I will go out and wait. I got distracted. It's fun to get distracted. One more plague, and afterwards he will let you go. Right? About midnight, I will go out into the midst of Egypt, and all the firstborn shall die." Yes. So these are the things that the Lord says, and then Moses repeats them into Pharaoh's ears. And the firstborn made son throughout all the land of Egypt shall die. And that's interesting too. The blood of, and of course we'll talk about the blood of the lamb. I don't think we need to go into that now because that's going to be tomorrow. We'll go into chapter 12. I didn't give myself enough verses, I think. But against any of the children of Israel shall not. Oh, I got that verse. Oh yeah. And all these thy servants shall come down unto me and bow themselves to me. And this is going to happen. I'm saying, get thee out. Pharaoh does not want to see him. And as Moses said, you've spoken truly. I won't see your face again. And he went out from Pharaoh in a great anger. Moses was mad. Pharaoh kept, even though he knew, the Lord kept saying he was hardening his heart. As I said, don't be shocked at the fiery trials that try you. We can't be losing our mind just because we have trouble and tribulation and sorrow sometimes, because that's part of life. Jesus was a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. He was not That isn't to say he couldn't laugh or anything like that, but he empathized with our sadness and our sicknesses and our hurts. You know, that I always take that as like, Jesus, what was Jesus sad about? He wasn't sad for himself. I mean, you know, not really, I suppose. I don't know if I could say that. I could speak for him in that way. But I do think it was the sorrows of the world, the sorrows of man. Like when he raised Lazarus, he wept. Like, you know, I remember Arnold Murray used to try to say he wept at their ignorance. Like, because he was like, he's not dead. You know, it's like people's feeling of loss is real. You know what I mean? Even if you know better, even if you know God's, you know, it's like, just like Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. That anguish was real because he knew what he was going to go through. And spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. It's no sin to feel your feelings, especially in the moments of trial. You know? And Moses was angry. Well, that's nice information. Thank you. So let's see. And so, you know, and then this verse throws me off. And the Lord said to Moses, Pharaoh shall not hearken you, that my wonders may... Well, there's just one more wonder, but I guess that's the point. He's got to not listen. He won't listen. He should thrust him out right now before he loses, because he just told him, your son's going to die, your firstborn son. In his hard heart, even though everything Moses has said to this point has come to pass, he lets him go. So, well, we didn't read chapter 12, so I'm not going to go into it. And I guess I'm in danger of not fulfilling my minimum requirement of an hour-long Bible study. But that's okay. It doesn't have to be exactly an hour. Sometimes we've shut it down a little bit before. Usually, for a while, I think I got it right at an hour, didn't I? Anyways, we'll have another Bible study tomorrow. And we'll go into this chapter 12 and probably even farther. I do enjoy going through the Word and talking to interesting strangers I haven't talked to before about the things of God, the things that we all share in common, the scriptures that we all believe in. And that's very much a pleasure to me, so I'll be here again tomorrow. Until then, remember, the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy.
Yahweh shall reign forever and ever. For the horse of Pharaoh with his chariots and with his horsemen went down into the sea. Yahweh brought the waters of the sea upon them, but the children of Israel went over dry in the midst of the sea.